This is Algebra 2, Lesson 7.1, Quadratic Equations. So, we're going to talk about 3 different formats of quadratic equations, and then throughout this chapter we'll be solving the 3 different formats, as well as converting between the 3 different formats. So, the first one is general form. That would be anything of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. An example of that would be 7x squared minus 2x plus 4, or y equals 3x squared minus 6. So general form has 3 terms. The leading term always has something with the power of x to the power of 2. The other 2 terms, a has to be 1, so you have to have that x squared, but the other 2 terms, b could be 0 or c could be 0, so those terms don't necessarily need to be there, but the first term has to be there. Vertex form is anything in the form a times x minus h squared plus k. And if you go back to chapter 5, if you've done that one recently, this is the exact same format that we use to translate or slide the quadratic equations, with the number here sliding the graph left and right, and the number here sliding the graph up and down. So your vertex then is the coordinates h, k. An example of this would be 3x minus 4 squared plus 7. So it has to have the set of parentheses with the power of 2. So just like general form, vertex form will also show a power 2. And the last one is factored form. Factored form equations still would have that leading coefficient, and then it would have 2 roots. So this one has 2 sets of parentheses but no power 2. And those R1 and R2 stands for the roots. Sometimes they're called different things, but they all mean the same. They could be roots, or they could be factors, or they could be zeros, or they could be x-intercepts. All of those mean the exact same thing. So that is where the graph would cross the x-axis, or where x would be equal to 0. That's where those words kind of come from. But an example of that could be like 6x minus 2, x plus 4. And I'm going to do one more, just kind of like that first one, where maybe your leading coefficient is a 1, so you would just leave it off. And maybe that leading coefficient is a 1, and one of your roots is 0. So 3 different examples that would all be factored form. So that first example there is going to have us take equations in factored form, so ones that have 2 sets of parentheses, and convert them to equations in general form, meaning we're going to use, basically we're going to distribute, we're going to get rid of those parentheses. If you've done anything with quadratics before, when I learned how to do this, we learned a method called FOIL. That's where you multiply your first terms, and then you multiply your outside terms, and then your inside terms, and then your last terms. And I like to use a method that I call the box method, which is basically FOIL, but it organizes it into a nice box. So the way we do that is we put x plus 4, one of our factors, on the side, and then x minus 7, our other factor, on the top. And then each of these boxes line up are basically your first, your outside, your inside, and your last when you multiply them. So I would do x times x and put the answer in this box. So that would be x squared. And then I would do x, I'll just do like this, times 4, and that would go in this box. So that is 4x. And then same thing, the x on the left times the negative 7 on the top would end up here, negative 7x. And then for the bottom box, negative 7 times positive 4 would give us negative 28. So if you're used to FOIL, you really could just FOIL. But if you're not, you could use this method. But basically this is like your F for your first, and then this is like your O for your outside, this is your I for your inside, and this is your L for your last. That's your FOIL method. But once we have this set up, there's still one more thing we need to do. So obviously we multiplied to get each of those boxes, and then the circle in the center, we're going to add our like terms. In this case, that's going to be 1x and negative 7x. Those are our like terms that go in the center. So 1x and negative 7x, that's negative 6x. And we are not right because this is a 4. Try that again. That's a negative 3. That's better. So our answer is along the diagonal here, y equals x squared minus 3x minus 28. Now we have an equation in general form where we have 3 separate terms. The first term has a leading coefficient of 1, but there is an x squared in there. Second one, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go through this one a little quicker. So I'm going to put one factor on the side, 3x and 5. One factor on the top, x negative 3. Doesn't matter which one's on the top, which one's on the side. We're going to multiply x times 3x, that's 3x squared. X times 5, that's 5x. And then negative 3 times 3x, that's negative 9x, and then the bottom corner here would be negative 3 times 5, that is negative 15. Now, we're going to put our like terms together. So negative 9 plus 5, that's negative 4x, and then we have our general form along the diagonal. Y equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 15. We have 2 more examples down here that ask us to change from vertex form to general form. So vertex form is where we had one set of parentheses and a power 2. And our goal is to basically get rid of those parentheses, come up with something with an x squared in it. So it's really exactly the same process for this first one as the factored form. Because x minus 2 squared really just means you have x minus 4 twice. So I'm going to label x minus 4 once and x minus 4 twice, and then I'm going to distribute or FOIL out. I have x times x times negative 4, x times negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. And then my like terms here and here, a negative 4 and a negative 4 makes a negative 8. X stays x. And we have our general form along the diagonal there. Letter B of part B is a little more complicated, but it's going to start out the same way. We only really use the box to help us distribute and get rid of the parentheses. So we're only going to use the x plus 2 squared in the box. We have 2 sets of x plus 2. We're going to multiply for all of our squares, x times x, 2 times x, 2 times x, 2 times 2. For our center circle, we're going to combine like terms. 2x plus 2x is 4x. And we are replacing this piece with what's along our diagonal. But the 4 is still at the front, and the minus 8 is still at the back. So I'm going to keep my 4, and then I'm going to put my general form from my box in parentheses, replacing that, and I'm going to do the minus 8 at the end. Now we need to actually distribute, and then we'll have to combine like terms. So this becomes 4x squared plus 16x plus 16 minus 8 is still there, so our like terms are constant terms. So that would be 4x squared stays 4x squared, 16x stays 16x, positive 16 and negative 8 become positive 8. Stick a y equals in the front, and this is my general form version from my vertex form that I was given. Phew! That is it for the notes. Good luck on the exercises, and please let me know if you have any questions.